Julio couldn't get his sound. He just couldn't hear the way he wanted to hear himself. That would incite him to be the artist that he could be. And we were in the Bahamas with Julio, and we were doing rehearsals at, I mean, the level of, you know, when you come out of the woods here in Texas or something, all of a sudden you're with a guy that's, you know, the number one guy all over the world.
Yeah.
And now we're rehearsing at a house that's on a bay there in the Bahamas, and there was only 3 houses on it, and he was on the one looking out onto the bay. And it was owned by somebody like the president of Universal or something like that.
Yeah, some big shot.
And they had a huge, it was bigger than the studio, but it was a solid glass in looking out on the ocean with a hardwood floor and all the bars for dancers, you know, so they had, you know, lots of people came in, stars, you know, they were told, you wouldn't believe who all's been here to rehearse and dance and get into shape for a movie or whatever.
Right.
So here's Julio. Well, Julio was, you know, he was doing some hair work and teeth work and little everything, and spending a couple of weeks of downtime while we rehearsed every day 2 or 3 hours in that beautiful space. And one morning about 8 o'clock, I get a call. It's Jules. And I go, what's up, boss? And he says, would you please come down to the house? I said, you mean the castle? You know. Anyway, he invited me down, and from the start, when I joined them, I was there to fix something.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, I came on with experience and all this stuff, and so I was supposed to find that thing that fixed it for
the
him.
Troubleshot shooting, yeah.
So we just sat there, had some cafe, and he said, Paul, do you know the crater in Arizona? And I went, oh, the meteorite crater out there? And he goes, oh, yes. He says, Julio, and he started talking about himself in third person. Julio's voice would like to be heard like in the center of that crater. He said, when I find, and he said, when I find my galaxy, and I said, your galaxy, he said, that's when I find that sound, then it immenses me. And he said, I'm not a singer. He said, I was a soccer player that got injured in a car wreck, you know, and wrote a song while he was injured, and that song went under, you know, when I joined him, and it sold 50 million copies as a single. And it's still one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. I mean, I watched people all the women just get goosebumps and just fall all over their old man when he was singing, Hey. And he said, I would like to, you know, Julio's voice wants to be at the center of the crater. And that when it immerses me, when I find my galaxy, he says, then I can sing. He says, then God gave me this voice that I never knew I had. And he said, when I feel my universe all around me, he says, then it all happens. He said, I don't have to try, I don't have to think about it, I don't do it, I just start singing the songs, and then everything works. And so I said, I'll work on that, boss. You know, I said, let's see, because after that we were going to Europe. And so about a couple of weeks later, we flew to Europe, started 2 or 3 months over there. And the very first place we played was like in Denmark or something like that. And it was an old, convention center type thing. It had the rollerdrome in it for all the bicycle things. Right?
Yeah.
And they could open it up and put the stage in. But the electricity was horrible. I mean, we got used to driving mic stands in the ground and pulling the 4-aught out there with a pair of channel locks on.
Wow.
To get a good ground. And we got there, and so we're finally getting some decent audio sound, and I'm thinking about it. And my job after I joined them is we mixed front of house and monitors from front of house. They bought Julio told us right off, and he says, how can we be more consistent on these gigs? Because we were using all kinds of really horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And so, well, if you got the money, let's buy a Harrison monitor desk that had 16 cents, and because we had 8 monitor cents going up there, and then the rest of it all front of house. Julio didn't want to look over to the side to try to tell somebody I need more of this or more of this.
He just wants you to know.
Oh, he would just look at us, and at the very first he'd just stop the show, and he'd go, Chris, we were doing the only remote Johnny Carson thing that he ever did, and he's sitting out there at where Disneyland is.
Anaheim?
Anaheim.
Yeah.
So we're doing the big amphitheater out there, and Julio's backstage talking to Johnny as they're doing all this stuff for the show that night.
Yeah.
And then he walks out on the stage to sing, and he couldn't hardly talk. They gave him some tea that'd been sitting around for a while, and it was cold. And then he got it, and we did 3 sold out nights in a row, and this was the 3rd one. And by this, it just cratered.
It was done.
Oh, he stopped the show a couple of times. He went, "Goodies, thank you very much." And Chris is going, "Oh no." And I'm going, "What? Hey, buddy." And I'd only been with him a few shows at the time. I said, "Hey, man," he's saying, "this is a good thing." He goes, "No, it isn't." "Thank you very much, Chris. This is the worst sound ever." And I'm going, "No," like then somebody walking behind front of the house says, "Hey, thanks, Chris." I said, "My name's Ralph." and I actually, I quit that night. I said, "Buddy, you don't do that to yourself or the audience." And he said, "Man, please stay with me. Please stay with us. We'll get it." He said, "We're getting there now." And so that's when we went to Europe.
Yeah.
And we get over there, and like I say, I'm up on stage, and my job was to handle the monitor side up there, get all of Julio's stuff up there. The power amps and the graphics were on stage. And so I would do all of that while Chris is kind of ringing out the house a little bit. And so we're all ready, and Julio's supposed to be there in about 15 minutes. And I'm sitting there with this mic, and I'm going, "Chris, have you ever put him," I'm sitting there listening to the whole system, and I was going, and I said, "All right, give me some more reverb," and that's what it was. He could not feel or hear his reverb the way he wanted it.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I figured that's what he meant.
8.6 seconds of decay time.
Okay.
So when he went, it went,
Right.
for 8 seconds. And I said, Julio's looking for something different. I said, "Have you ever put any reverb in his monitors?" Boy, Chris went, "Oh, no," because he didn't know how to be able to handle it or do it, without being on stage.
Right.
And I said, on the 2 returns, send them to, number 1 monitor guy right here. And I said, let me just sit here and hold the mic. Julio was singing half the time with this mic down in the
way
down just there. And he was using the 58 when I joined. The first thing I did is I got him a buy, 736 or something, a really great condenser. And as soon as he used it, he went, and he'd just make sounds and tones and stuff as he'd listened to everything. And I had the reverb turned down. I said, "Chris, when he comes in, I'm going to go out there and just have a couple of words with him, talk about his Galaxy. And when I started doing this, I want you to break up." We found a good location for it to end up with before he got here. And I said, you mark it right there so you don't go past that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I walked out, I had a white towel over my arm, and I handed him his mic, and he never used wireless because he needed the cable to support him from his accident. He had to have somebody holding on to him.
Right, like a crouch.
So I have it like this, and I said, "Here's your Galaxy, boss." And he, fa, and I'm doing this to Chris. Bring it up. Slow but easy. And when he started hearing the reverb coming up, and he had 6 of the Clear Brothers double 15 monitors.
Yeah.
He had the half moon shape right there.
Mm-hmm.
And when it started coming up like this, he just all of a sudden, he got goosebumps, and he's going, "Whoa, fa, 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 fa." And he looked at me and just started smiling. I said, "Here you go, boss." And then I went back out front, and we just started doing sound check. And later after the show, he called me over, and he says, "We're there."
Nice.
We're there.
You took
From
him to
that
the
point
crater.
on, and that's when I decided to go ahead and stay, because it just got better.
Yeah.
Because Julio never again stopped the show and started yelling at Chris because he wasn't hearing what he wanted to do.
Well, you called him on his bullshit, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we played the Budokan with Julio, and it was still in that kind of that same area of space in that first year. And he had never called me by my name yet.
Yeah.
And so we're in the Budokan, and it's just, it's cavernous city out there. It's just the worst sounding place. It's just concrete echoing all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris is up on stage doing something with the girls' mics or something. He's fixing something on stage, and I'm out front. And Chris, Julio, he goes, "My engineer number 2. Like this, and we'd been traveling, and it just did sit with me very well.
I bet not.
And I went, "Oh, engineer number 2," and I'm back there, and it's just starting to boil over. I said, "Man, I almost quit some, a month or so ago, and this is just another one of those. That's ain't right." And Antonio, his guitar player, was Julio's best friend from school and all these things. And he's the guy who handled the money. He was your best friend, accountant, and just this kind of chucker guitar player. Just perfect for what Julio wanted to hear. And Julio, I'm back there going, and I'm just kind of walking around, fuming a little bit, letting off steam. And Julio left the stage. And in the Budokan, when you leave the stage, you go up big concrete stairs up to the dressing rooms up there, and it's really open.
Yeah.
And so I come back, and I'm going to go up there and tell Julio what my name is and all this stuff. And Tony was already ready at the bottom of the stairs. He was going, it's okay. And I said, no, and I knew, and I just finally, I said, "Tony, he doesn't even know my name, and I've been here and I've been helping him," and I just laid it out on Tony, and Julio's hearing it upstairs.
Yeah.
The next day we come in, and the first thing, "Oh, Paul, can you hear me do this?" And from that point on, he was calling me Paul 3 or 4 times during sound checks and stuff like that. And that's good. Tony said, "Worked out great."
You got to put them in their place, man.
Yeah.
I like that.
And from that point on, that's when I really got to be good friends with Julio. And I got to tell you this one story. We were in Italy, and the Capezio shoe people came down, and Julio had just done an endorsement with them for Capezios that were going to be called Julios.
Okay.
And they're these little flat things that, when you walk, the heel doesn't, you whoop, black, whoop, black, whoop, black. And I hated it. I put it, they measured us all, and I tried something.
You all had to use them?
Well,
God.
they all, this is when he and I really came tight. We get back to America. We're at Caesar's Palace in Vegas, and we do a 2-week run there, usually about every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing my Chucks, and all of a sudden, here comes some guys with security, and they come in with a bunch of boxes. They lay them all out on the front stage during sound check, and everybody's getting their Capezios, and they were all in pastel colors. And I said, "Yeah, just blue." The yellow ones. I said, "Nah, I'm not wearing that." That's I said, "Yeah, make mine." And they were size 10, and these blue things came out, and I took one of my shoes off and put one on just to check it out. It fit perfectly, but as soon as I took a step and lifted up like this and stepped that way, the heel would flop down. It would just no. I said, all I can do is walk very daintily in these shoes.
Yeah.
And so we got them all and everything, and Julio goes back to his dressing room while we're doing all this stuff. And I'm looking at the bass player, Vicente, and I say, "Hey, Benny, what size you wearing?" He's trying to figure it out in American sizes to his España. And I said, mine are 10s. He goes, "Oh." I said, "You can have them." And he went, "Oh, 2 sets of Julios. I mean, he'll love me. He's got to love me more now."
Yep.
And Vinny was a really good guy, and all the guys in his band been with him ever since he became a star.
Right.
And so I put my chuck back on and I go back behind the drum riser. And the drum riser was one of these real big ones because we had all these horn players and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting up on the drum riser where my feet are hanging off at about, chest level if anybody walks by. And so I'm just kind of sitting there hanging out like this, and I see the dressing room door open down there, and Julio comes out, and he looks down, and I just kind of, he comes walking by, and he stops, and he's looking at my chucks, and he goes, "Paul, why do you wear such ugly shoes?" And I said, "Well, Chief, and before I got anything out, after calling him Chief, he just, "What is this, Chief?" And I said, like Cochise or Sitting Bull, Native American, the head cheese.
Yeah, yeah.
I had 2 or 3 little metaphors, whatever. And he sat there for a second. And I said, the top man, the boss. He went, "I think I like this Chief." And he said to me, and I'm the only one that ever called him anything except, Julio.
Yeah.
Yes, Julio. Yes, Julio. And we toured the rest of the world on that tour like this. And we'd be in, I promised myself when I went with Julio, I was going to go to every party that Julio was going to be at. If they invited us, I was going to go.
Yeah.
You never know who you'd meet or where you're going to be.
Of course, and you have to meet a lot of people when you're in that business.
Oh, yeah. And so we flew into Sydney out of Africa. And all the horn players were drunk and playing in the back of a 747. And we're all partying on there. And we get into Sydney and it's raining like crazy. But he has a party set up that night at a place. It's like almost like Joe's or something like that. It was a bar, restaurant type thing. And one of the reasons I took that tour, I wanted to see 2 places in the world if I got a chance to. One of them was the Opera House in City and Ground Zero in
New York.
In Japan.
Oh, Japan. Okay.
Yeah, and we played Hiroshima. The hotel was right across the street from Ground Zero.
Wow.
And Japanese people come 24 hours a day bringing origami,
Mm-hmm.
a little
Yeah.
piece of paper like this square makes a little bird.
The swan
And then
looking
they
thing. Yeah.
put them on top, put them on top, put them on top.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't go to the hotel. We went straight to the gig. And I was asking the band, I said, "How close are we to?" They said, "Man, we're sitting there at Ground Zero.
Yeah.
We're at the hotel and everything." And I get back over there, and everybody's kind of looking around, and I just walk out the side door, and there I was walking right into the park where the church is.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there all night, and like that was 2 of the things
Surreal.
I wanted to do. I got to do them on that tour with Julio.
Wow.
But we had a big record company party when we got into Australia. Pouring down rain, and I said, I'm asking, everybody's so tired and wore out because we spent the whole day in Zaire as they searched everything we had 2 or 3 times, all of our bags, all the outs, all that stuff. And we get in there, and most of the crew guys had people waiting on them. One of them, Rodney, the guy that got me the gig, was Mr. Saxman. He had toured down there with Dr. Hook.
Nice.
And so he knew the bikers, all
Yep.
the guys. They met us with half pound of herb and all this stuff. And so that that part of the group went straight on to partying at the hotel. And then one of the girl singers, called me, "Do you want to go to the party? Julio really wants us to come because they were 3 unbelievable singers and beautiful and everything."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "We're getting a cab if you want to go." And I'll be right downstairs. And so I went to the party, and we're driving through the rain in a cab and everything. And we pull up under some trees and everything, and it's a place called Joe's or something like that. Very special place. We walk inside, and we walk through some hallways like this, and it opens out onto the stage of the Opera House.
Wow.
The club was the Opera House bar and dinner thing that's up behind the stage and everything.
Wow.
And looks right out onto the harbor.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going, Number two.
Yeah.
Number two. And we sat there. That's when I really, that's when I really graduated into, being close enough with Julio that I could almost do anything I wanted to do. Because we had this huge dinner and all these tables, and they gave him like 4 different platinum records. Everywhere we went, he had platinum records. And so we get a table, and I've got all the girls with me and 2 of the, more, fun time guys in the band. And we grabbed a waiter came by, and I said, "You are now this table's waiter. Is that okay?" "Sure, mate. No problem. What do you need?" I said, "A champagne bottle for everybody at the table." And all of a sudden, we're all just pouring champagne down and looking out on this thing. And they brought out a gigantic rolling table with all of the desserts on it. I mean, it was dessert city. Everything you could ever imagine for dessert was on this thing. And Julio decided he was going to leave at that time. And he had a big entourage with him, and it was a narrow area where they had it. And so I'm up there with 2 of the singers, and we're kind of, taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And Julio's coming down behind us, and I turn around, and as he comes by me, he gives me the wink, and I, "What's up, Chief?" And I just kind of gave him a pat on the back as he came by, but he kind of tripped.
Oh.
Right as he was doing it. And I mean, he had a broken back, and every step he takes it just has to be right. And people were kind of getting real thick in through there. And so as I put my hands, I kind of touched his head. I could feel him lunging forward, so I reached around real quick and just got my hand in the center of his chest and straightened him up.
Yeah.
And all the security and all these people, they don't know who I am or anything else, and they're all getting ready to freak. And Julio just goes,
Yeah.
You just did say, you did that to me many times. You just come in and grab me like that and do this thing.
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice.